What? So that link between the jiva and the Brahman, that is the similarity or the sadrishya. Yeah, but at the same time, there is a bigger relationship, a much more important relationship between the jivas and Brahman. So that's called pradhanya. Pradhanya means preeminence. And what is that relationship? That relationship is he is the Sarvakarta. We are just, we are nobody. He is the most important thing in existence. We are just there. He is an independent being. We are all dependent. Yeah. So that relationship is called pradhanya or preeminence or the independent Brahman and the dependent jivas. And that brings on to the key philosophy of what is called as Eka Vijnanena Sarva Vijnanam. Okay, so here I just want to break and wake you all up. I have asked a question here, similarity, and I gave one or two examples of similarities. Could I have some contributions from folks, please? What is that similarity between the Jiva and Brahman that we are actually talking about here? So who is going to take that question?
Madhu, it's Padmaja from Bangalore.
Yeah, go on, Padmaja.
Brahma is Anadi Nitya, Jiva is also Anadi Nitya. That is one similarity between Jiva and Brahma. Then we are Aprakruta. Both of us, both Jiva and Brahma are Aprakruta. Both of them are Sachidananda. These are the few things that I could recollect.
Yeah, wonderful, Padmajaji. Thank you very much for that. I think you got all the key similarities between Jivas and Brahman here. Now, one other thing that I think we need to remind ourselves is when we talk about similarities, this is a similarity between two sentient things. Jivas are sentient beings, Brahman is sentient being. Yeah. So the similarity is between a sentient being versus a sentient being. We are not talking about a similarity between a Jada and Brahman. We are talking about a similarity between Jiva and Brahman. So that is a key thing that you need to remember, that the similarity, the scope of the similarity that is being discussed by Uddalaka Aruni is that all the things that Padmajaji has mentioned, which is to do with the sentient beings. Okay. Now, what is the differences? How are we different from Brahman? Who's going to take that on? It's all well and good talking about similarities, but there is an ocean of difference between us and Brahman, which is what the concept of pradhanya brings home to us. So, what are those differences? Does anybody want to take that one on?
Can I do it again, Madhu?
Yeah, go for it, Padmaja. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Brahma is Swatantra, Jiva is Aswatantra. Then Brahma is Sarvagna, we are Alpagnas. Brahma is Sarvashakta, we are Alpashakta. Same way, Brahma is Sarvakarta, we are Alpakarta.
Yeah, wonderful, Padmajaji. Thank you. 100 out of 100. So you got all the questions right. Now, the other thing also is that we all have various types of nashas. We have various types of destructions as mundane sentient beings. And jadas also have destruction. What are all those? That is deha hani, dukkha prati, apurnatam, ignorance, all those things are limitations, and that leads on to some type of destruction. Whereas for the supreme being, he doesn't have any of these four types of destructions as well. And that is one of the reasons why he's pradhanya, because he doesn't have anything, his body doesn't decay. Our bodies decay. Yeah. And then dukkha prapti, we suffer. He never suffers. Yeah. So apurnata, we are very limited, but as Padmajaji mentioned, he is infinite. So all those things. So when you take up sadrishya and pradhanya, instantly it gives you sadrishya similarities. Pradhanya, he is pradhanya by definition means we are different from him. There can only be one independent being, and all others are dependent on him. So that brings to the concept of Eka Vijnanena Sarva Vijnanam, which was the key message of the first Pratamaha Kandaha of the Shashto Adhyayaha of Chandogya Upanishad. The key concept there is the supreme majesty of Brahman. and all of us are dependent on him for our satta, pramiti, and pravriti, as Shastra call us, say that as, which essentially means we are dependent on him for our existence, for our objecthood of knowledge, and for all the activities that we do in this material existence. Okay, so on that note, let's move on. So what did we do last week or a fortnight ago? So we started making some pravesha to the second adhyaya, and second khanda, and then we took the first paragraph, which again is a very, very important verse of Vedanta. Sad eva somya idam agra asi ekameva advitiyam. So we took that and we dissected out those verses in great detail. Sat. Okay, so the first question there, I got here question for people to think about. Why is Brahman called Sat? Who is going to take that question? So Gita, for example, Krishna in 17th chapter, 23rd verse, he said, Om Tat Sad iti nirdeshaha. Yeah. So people call me as Om, they call me as Tat, they call me as Sat. So I've taken this Sat. Why is Brahman called Sat? And that is exactly what Uddalaka takes. Sat eva somya idam agra. Idam means he's looking outside and says idam means this universe. Agre means before this universe, which essentially means before creation. Sat eva somya idam agra asit. Yeah. So what is that Sat? So can I have some contributions here, please? Okay, a little bit of silence. So we'll hopefully the next question will wake you up. So Sat, the word Sat, again, as we go back to the couple of the fortnight slide, I gave you a table with what is Sat, what is Asat, what are the various meanings of Sat, etc. And one meaning we said was Brahman is also called Sat. But the question is, why is he called Sat? Not just because he is real and all others are unreal. That's a very elementary interpretation of calling Brahman as Sat. Sat stands for Swatantra. Sat stands for Nirdosha. Yeah. So he who is without defects, he who is Swatantra, independent being, that is one meaning of Sat. And of course, Sat has got so many other meanings. As you know, Satyam in Taittiriya Upanishad defines Brahman as Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Where that Satyam is there, the first part of the Satyam is Sat. So that means that Sat there is Nirdosha, he who is defectless, which essentially means he who is full of infinite auspicious attributes. Okay, that is why he is called Sat. And again, we have done Gayatri Mantra. In Gayatri Mantra, we said that Gayatri is Brahman himself. And then that Brahman, what is the Gayatri? How does it go, Gayatri Mantra? Who's going to recite Gayatri Mantra? Let's get somebody to recite Gayatri Mantra, please. Can I have a contribution?
Madhuji, I can do Harish.
Yeah, Harish. Yeah, go for it, Harish.
Om Bhur-Bhuvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat.
Thank you, Harish. So in that Gayatri, that is Brahma Gayatri portion of Vishwamitra Gayatri, it says Tat Savituhu Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. So if you take Krishna's Gita chapter 17:23, Sat there means Sat is an abbreviation of Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Sa and Tat. So Sat. So it is an abbreviation of Gayatri. Even Tat Savitur Varenyam Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Tat is also an abbreviation of Gayatri mantra. Okay, and we know Om is the expansion. The Gayatri mantra itself is an expansion of Omkara, and we have spent weeks and months talking about it. So all those verses, when you look at Gita from an Upanishad perspective, it opens up completely differently. So that's Sat. So it is the same Sat that our Uddalaka Aruni has taken, and he says the Pradanya or the independence or the preeminence of Brahman, the classic example of the preeminence of Brahman is his creatorship, that he is the creator of the universe. We will not be here if this Brahman had not created. And that itself gives you a hint how we are all dependent on our own existence on the supreme being. And that was all what he was trying to describe in the examples that he gave, the second and the third example. The second example in particular, and vacharambano vikaro namadeyam mritika iti eva satyam. Yeah, Karshnayasam iti eva satyam, lohamani iti eva satyam. So when he gave those examples, he was bringing about the pradanyatva of Brahman. So I hope you're able to remind yourselves of that. So then when we understood that this is this fellow who was there even before creation, yeah, so that we accept, okay, there was this creation, there was the Big Bang. Before the Big Bang, what was, so we went through the Nasadiya Sukta and said what were all the things that was there. And he said that the Nasadiya Sukta of Rig Veda was very clear. What was not there? Sat was not there, Asat was not there. Raja, Vyoma, night and day was not there. Mrityu and Amrutam was not there. So these are all very, very cryptic words. How can Asat be not there? You don't have to say Asat was not there. The very word Asat means it is not there. Asat means non-existence. You don't have to say Asat, non-existence was not there. Yeah. So that is not the right way of interpreting the verse, because it's grammatically, it's tautology as it's called. It is a repetition. So Vedas don't do repetitions at all. So when you look at these words carefully, Sat there means different. Asat there actually means different. Yeah, and Rajo, Vyoma, night, day means they are all, it's an entirely different concept. We'll come to that later in this talk, and I want to spend some time reminding of the language of the Vedas. Mrityu was not there, Amrutam was not there. What does that mean? Mrityu means who? Amrutam means what? You know, this is different way of looking at the verses, and Uddalaka actually will actually give us a hint. When we go to Uddalaka's language in the next paragraph, hopefully you will be able to understand what is this Mrityu, what is this Amrutam, what is this Raja, what is this Vyoma, who are these people? Are they material things or something else? Yeah, you will understand that. What was there? Tad Ekam, that Lord was there. Tamas Salilam, Mula Prakriti was there. Absolute time was there. So Rig Veda makes it very clear that these things were there, whereas these things were not there. Okay, there is your answer when it says Ekameva Advitiyam. Ekameva Advitiyam then clearly means, well, it certainly does not mean Brahman alone is real and exists and all others are unreal. That absolutely is not the meaning of this verse. And to bring home that message, I gave you this incident of this great philosophical debate that happened between a monastic scholar and Yamunacharya, who is the guru of Ramanujacharya of the Visishtadvaita school. So Yamunacharya had this argument, has this debate in the presence of Parantaka Cholan, yeah, in Madurai. He had that discussion, and that is documented in Siddhitraya of Yamunacharya. And in that work, Yamunacharya gives a very, very good example. He says, basically what happens is after this argument, Yamunacharya wins over the monastic scholar. And then he says, when it is said, our Chola king is one without a second in the world, it only rules out the existence of any other ruler equal to him, but not the existence of his son, his staff, or his queen. There is your clue as to what that Ekameva Advitiyam actually means. So that is it is a very important verse of Vedanta, and a lot of acharyas have spent, they've written a lot of work talking about this. So I leave it to you to make up your mind. But to me, Yamunacharya's argument is it brings home the truth to me. Yeah, because then subsequent verses then become relevant. When, as I told you a million times, prakarana or contextual relevance of Upanishads is very important. When you want to understand a line, you need to know what is there before and what is there afterwards. What is the context in which it is being discussed? You should just not pluck it from there and then say, oh, Ekameva Advitiyam, the world is an illusion. No, it doesn't work like that for proper readers of Vedanta. Yeah, so this is important, the prakarana. So what is the prakarana? He said, Sadeva Somya idamagra asid ekameva advitiyam. So he said, Sat alone existed before, All others were in a dormant state. They existed in a dormant state with no activity. And then, so what is Uddalaka actually trying to say here? He is actually trying to teach his son the pradhanyatva of Brahman by actually bringing about the Shrishti Prakarana, as it's called, the sequence of creation. How does creation come about in every kalpa? As you know, Data Yata Purvam Akalpayat. This is not the first time this universe has come into being. This universe has come into being and is gone into a suspended animation infinite number of times before, and it is going to do the same thing infinite number of times in the future. Yeah, so he is telling us, so this was there before this creation. But you know what, some fellows, there are some philosophers who actually take a different view, and they say tadaika ahuhur asadeva idamagra asid ekameva advityam. There are some schools which think before creation was nothingness. There was nothingness before creation, and from nothingness, everything came into manifestation. Yeah. So that tells you that even in the Vedic times, these views were there. And I also told you about, even in Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a verse, Asadva idamagra asid. Asad was there before, in the beginning, before creation. So what is that Asad actually means? Asad, again, there are various meanings of Asad, and I've given you a table in a couple of classes, or last class, I think. Asat will mean anything that is unmanifested is called Asat. Mula Prakriti is also called Asat. Unmanifested God is also called Asat in Vedic parlance. Okay, so if you take that view, it fits in very well. Unmanifested Mula Prakriti was there before creation. Unmanifested God was also before creation. But there are some schools, particularly Tathagata, the Buddhist schools, which have, for example, misinterpreted these verses. Yeah, this is a classic case of not understanding the language of the Vedas. If one does not understand the language of the Vedas, one cannot say Vedas are not authoritative, which is a Buddhist position, that Vedas are not authoritative, therefore not worthy of our studies. That is most unfortunate of the disciples of Buddha. Buddha's view was entirely different. And I've given you a few examples, but it is his disciples who came after that who misinterpreted this. And now you know, within that school, there are so many strands of it, and one strand does not agree with the others. So that is their state of affairs. So pulling you back here, so he says, Tasmad asataha sajjayata. So some schools say there is not nothingness, from nothingness sat or reality comes about. So Uddalaka says, Kutastu kalu somya idam syaditi hovacha katam asataha sajjayateti. He says, have we seen anywhere in this world that something comes out of nothing? That is impossible. There is no example in this world that one could give to say that nothing, from nothingness something came about. Yeah, it is impossible. So using that illustration or rationalization, he says, Satveva somya idamagra asid ekameva advitiyam. So that is the first paragraph, and that becomes important because to understand the next paragraph, we need to have this nailed in our minds and in our thought that Brahman, not just Brahman alone exists, but the leaf exists, the water exists. Okay, so here I was going to remind myself what I was going to ask this question by putting this question mark here. So in this symbology that we have in Vaishnavism, where Krishna is lying on a Ashwatha leaf, and then that leaf is on a water. So the water is Mula Prakriti. Yeah, Krishna is lying on the Mula Prakriti. What is this leaf? So who is going to tell me what this leaf is? And I want you to give me the proof for that as well. Who's going to take this one? Come on, guys. Ashwatha leaf. We have done this for 3 or 4 months. Chapter 15. I'll give you the clue as well. Chapter 15. What is Ashwatha leaf? We studied about the Ashwatha tree, right? So who is going to recite that first 2.5 verses of chapter 15?
Paranani?
Well done, Sheilaji. Chandamsi Paranani. Yeah. So the leaf there are the Vedas. Okay. Chandamsi Paranani. Paranas means leaf. Yeah. and that is the Ashwatha leaf. So there you have the Nama Roop. So when we said creation, if you remember, creation is of two things, isn't it? Creation is Mula Prakriti modifying itself from subtle to gross, and Namas, when this Brahman says Om and the Vedas expand, and then each name is given to each object from the Vedas. So Nama and Rupa, Nama and Rupa are on a suspended state before creation, and our man is sitting there. Okay, this is the symbology of the symbolism of this particular picture. Thank you, Shilaji, for that wonderful answer. Yeah. So having said that, Brahman was there before creation and everything was in suspended animation, Uddalaka now goes to talk about the Shrishti Prakarana. Okay, how did the creation come about? Okay, creation and pradhanya of Brahman, how we can understand and then adopt that in our daily lives. At the end of the day, this may all be very academic and maybe interesting, but we need to bring all these messages of the Upanishads into our lives. So how do we bring that in our lives? This is what Uddalaka is going to explain to us in the next few paragraphs. Okay, so let me just remind you here. So as I said before, there is the Mula Prakriti. Okay, and then there are the Jivas, and then there is the Brahman. So these are the three things that are all there in all of existence. So the view there is vikaraha. When we did this vikaraha, vacharambana vikaro namadeyam mritika iti eva satyam, the word vikara is an extremely significant word because it gives you so many hidden meanings. Vikara, Vikriyata iti vikaraha. That is that which is amenable to modification. What is amenable to modification? Mula Prakriti is amenable to modification from subtle to gross. Jivas are not amenable to modification. Krishna has said in chapter 2, fire does not dry it, water does not wet it, the Shastras cannot kill it, nothing. It just cannot be modified. It is just there. It is eternal. Anadi Nitya is Jiva. Jiva does not have a modification. It can acquire a body, but it is the Mula Prakriti that undergoes that kind of modification. So that is one meaning of Vikara. The other meaning of Vikara that is relevant to the Jivas is Vivida Akaraha, acquires a body, which is the Ashwatha tree of Krishna of chapter 15, which constantly undergoes modification. So Jivas acquire. So there are two types of Vikaras, one type for Jadas, one type for Jivas. And of course, there are a whole lot of verses that we said last time. And then I also finished off last week saying the detailed descriptions of the sequence of creation described in this Upanishad, not only in this Upanishad, but all Upanishads, is relevant only if the creation is real rather than an illusion. If this is an illusory creation, nobody is going to make an effort to talk about each step as to who comes and what modification happens and so on. So, and also if it is an illusory creation, why waste and describe something that really does not exist? So all these questions should come to our mind so that we have a particular view that will actually remind us of the greatness of Brahman. That is what Uddalaka is trying to say here. So what is he saying then? So the very next paragraph, he goes on to say, Tad aikshata bahusyam prajayeya iti. Tat tejo asrajata. Tat tejo aikshata bahusyam prajayeya iti. Tat apo asrujata. Tasmad yatra kvacha sochati svedate va purushaha tejasa eva tad apo jayante. Okay, this is the third paragraph. We'll just hold there. Okay, and then we will move to the other verses, hopefully this week, but in the following discussions, because believe me, every word in this particular paragraph is extremely important, and I'll tell you why. So what has happened here, that Brahman who was there, so he started off talking about this Brahman before creation. Everything else is unmanifested. So this Brahman then said Tad Aikshata. Remember, first he said Sat. Now he is saying Tat. What is Tat? Tat means what? That. That is one meaning of that. But Tat is what? Om Tat Sat iti nirdeshaha. Tat is a name of the Supreme as well. So when you take that two different views, that which was described was present before creation, Aikshata, or that Brahman, also we call him as Vishnu or Krishna, Aikshata. Okay, so I hope you are able to put in all those meanings that we have read in Gita and elsewhere in here. So then it becomes more interesting. So when you take Tad Aikshata, let's look at this word Aikshata, which is very important. Aikshata means to see, yeah, Ikshana, to view, to desire, to think. Yeah, so it gives you an idea of what Aikshata means: to see, to view, to desire, to think, i.e., it is a voluntary act. Yeah, this is important. So it is a voluntary act. So this Brahman who was there before creation said, "Let me create." Okay, so that is a voluntary process. Yeah, I hope you are able to grasp that idea there. So I put this here: always watch the language of the Vedas. This first word here opens up in Vedanta about a whole lot of philosophy. Okay, Tad Aikshata. Yeah. Now look at Taittiriya Upanishad. So Akamayata. So look at the word. Tad Aikshata Bahusyam Prajayeya iti. But if you go to Taittiriya Upanishad, it will say So Akamayata Bahusyam Prajayeya iti. The Bahusyam Prajayeta is very similar. It's the same. Bahusyam Prajayeya iti. And in Taittiriya, it's Bahusyam Prajayeya iti. All that is different there is Tad Aikshata, So Akamayata. And that is why I've said to see or to desire. Yeah. So that gives you an idea again that this creation of Brahman is a voluntary act. So a voluntary act essentially rules out an illusion of creation. Why? And again, I've told you here, I put this in this box here. Okay. And so I'm wearing glasses, it's dark, and I'm walking in the fields. There is a rope sit on the ground, and I'm just walking, and suddenly I see something that looks like a snake, and I get scared. That situation is an involuntary situation. I do not walk in that field when it is dark and say, okay, there should be a rope in the field, and when that rope comes, I should see a snake. I don't think like that and say I should then see an illusion. So illusion is an involuntary act. Yeah. So this, this is fundamentals of psychology. Yeah. There is no great philosophy here. It is basic psychology. That illusion is an involuntary thing that happens because the brain misinterprets things, whereas an illusion cannot be a voluntary act. So that is gives you another cue there that what Uddalaka is trying to say is that
Madhu, are you there still? We can't hear you.
Madhu?
Is it everybody or just us can't hear Madhu, please?
Madhu's
Yeah.
dropped off, so we can't see him on the screen.
Okay, I think he's just joining. Yeah, thank you.
Can you hear me now? I'm back online.
Yes, we can hear Madhu.
Yeah, okay, sorry about that. So I'm having some IT issues. I don't know what went there. Okay, anyway, so we were in a very, very interesting aspect of Tad Aikshata. And I said, this guy willed, this guy desired. Now, a basic philosophical question that arises here is, why should this fellow desire and think to create? He could have just stayed where he is. He's happily on this leaf. He is on this Mula Prakriti. Lakshmi is with him. Wherever Narayana is there, Lakshmi is always with him. Lakshmi Narayana, they're both having a good time. It's peace. There is no noise. Nobody is doing samsara to be worried about. He could have just left the situation there. Why did this fellow even desire? Why did he desire or think to say, let me create? Who wants to take that fundamental question? So this is a deep philosophical question, which hopefully will bring in some interesting discussions. Anybody wants to tackle that?
Sushruth here.
Yeah.
It was to give the jivas a chance to improve themselves and achieve the best that they can.
Thank you, Sushruth. Anybody else?
Madhu, Icha Matram.
Okay, Icha Matram Prabho Srishtihi. Yeah, so okay, Icha Matram. So he thought and then he created, yes. But the question is, why should he create?
Why?
He could have just sat there quietly, isn't it? Why bring all us in this samsara and give us a lot of headaches?
Because of the compassion for all of us, for all the Jivatmas.
Thank you, Pratibhaji. So yeah, I would agree with Pratibhaji and Sureshji. Excellent answer. So imagine the situation where you have seeds. Yeah, you have seeds, and all these seeds you have maize, wheat, rice, mango, everything, and of course neem and everything else. All these seeds are in a shelf. Nothing has come into creation. Everything is there. What is the use of those seeds? But if you bring everything to creation, plant those seeds so that those seeds can actually grow and make flowers and fruit and evolve themselves. Yeah. So one view about why he desired to create, because this is important. God creates not for his pleasure. Yeah. He is not creating the universe, or he is bringing jivas to samsara because he just wants to see them suffer and have a good, or some of them have a good time. No, God does not create for his pleasure. He creates, as how Pratibha ji said, for our compassion. There is the infinite mercy of the Supreme, that he is so gracious that he brings us into creation so that we can work out our destiny and eventually reach him. Yeah. So that is why he aikshata. That is why he is thinking. The same thing Taittiriya Upanishad also says. So akamayata. He desires not for his pleasure, so that these jivas can actually come into creation, work out their samsaras through their karmas, go through all their cycles of birth and evolve so that they can come to me. Yeah. So tad aikshata, I hope you find it interesting. So tad aikshata bahusyam prajayeya iti. So I'm going to just pause. I've got a red box here. So in this paragraph, what Uddalaka is talking about is, he's talking about, so I'll read it again. Bahusyam prajayeya iti tat tejo asrijata. Tejaha. Tat tejo aikshata bahusyam prajayeti tad apo asrujata. Yeah. Ta apa aikshanta bahusyam prajayema hiti ta annam asrujata. Okay. So Uddalaka takes three examples: Tejas, Ap, and Annam. So he says these things come into being. So I've got a question there. Just want to have a background as to what our thinking is about Tejas, Ap, and Annam, and then we move to the next slide. So who is going to tell us here what Tejas, Ap, and Annam is, or what is their understanding of what Tejas, Ap, and Annam is? Or fire, water, and earth, if you say literal English translation. So who is going to give that answer here?
Sorry, Madhu, in the context of what? Tejas?
In this example, what does Tejas, Ap, and Annam mean? So Tejas there means So if you look at, so let's see what could be a very a simple way of understanding this verse. Is Tejas fire? Is Aap water? Is Annam food, earth? So if I say Tejas equals fire, Aap equals water, and Annam equals earth. So what are these three? Fire, water, and earth are components of what? What of the five?
Panchamahabhutas.
Yeah, thank you, Shilaji. Panchamahabhutas. So when you look at the language of Uddalaka, the first question that should come to your mind is Uddalaka talking about fire, water, and earth, the three among the Panchabhutas? Because at the end of the day, all living things that have bodies of various types, they have these combinations of three, right? Fire, water, and earth. And many of the jadas that you see outside, they are also made of Tejas, Aap, and Annam. They are made. Annam is another way of earth. Yeah, Annam is earth. Yeah, there is no difference between Annam and earth because they are all made of the same earthly substances. So does that mean that Uddalaka is saying, so the Tejas, Aap, and Annam was created, fire, water, and earth was created, and the mixing of this became the rest of the material universe? Is that what Uddalaka is talking about? Okay. This is an important question because this particular section of Uddalaka not only brings about Srishti Prakarana, talks about the sequence of creation, but it also talks about what we call as Devata Taratamya, about the Vedic pantheon of all the devatas that we have in the Hindu Sanatana Dharma, and how all the various devatas evolved during creation. So it opens up discussions for this, and so this is almost like a revision class for us, not only about how creation comes about, but also, the various devatas that we worship in temples. Why do we worship them? This section of Uddalaka will actually give you an answer for this, and I hope you will find this interesting. Hopefully today we have some good time here to cover some aspects of it. So the first thing I want to find out is Tejas, Aap, and Annam merely means fire, water, and earth? The resounding answer is no. Okay, so I'll tell you why. It cannot mean Tejas, Aap, and Annam when we go to the deep language of Vedic Sanskrit. The reason being, we have done our Srishti revision before. We've said Mula Prakriti, then it becomes Mahat, then there is Ahankara, then there is Vaikaraka, Tejas, then Tejasa Ahankara becomes Pancha Tanmatras, then they become Panchabhutas. Okay, Panchabhutas are five: Akasha, Vayu, Tejas, Apaha, Prithvi, or Annam. Okay, so this we are all familiar with. Yeah. Now, if for example, you take what Uddalaka has said first, tad aikshata bahusyam prajayeya iti tat tejo asrujata. So the very next tat tejo asrujata means comes into being. So he said, so tad, when he thought, the first thing that he created was Tejas. So if you take the Tejas as fire, there is a fundamental problem there. The reason being, they are the last to evolve in creation. They are not the first. Agni, for example, or the Tejas. Agni is also called Tejas in one colloquial Sanskrit. So the Agni is also called Tejas. If that is what Uddalaka is talking about, that is actually one of the last evolutes of creation. In fact, Aitareya Brahmana says, Agnir vai devanam avamo, Vishnuhu paramaha, tad antara sarva devataha, which means Agni is the lowest among the gods. So if you take this is material Agni, there is a problem because it is the lowest of the evolutes. If you take the stages as the Agni Devata, that is also wrong because Agni is the lowest. He is the rank 15th in the Vedic pantheon. But here, Uddalaka or the Upanishad or the Chandogya Upanishad, it's not Uddalaka's view, right? It is part of the Chandogya Upanishad. Chandogya Upanishad is a Apaurushaya Veda, and that is eternal Anadi Nitya. So this Sama Veda is saying, Tad Aikshata Bahusyam Prajayeya iti tat tejo asrujata. Okay, so I'm just giving you a clue there how to interpret this verse. So there the Teja cannot mean the material Agni, because material Agni comes last in the evolution. It cannot mean Agni Devata because he is the 15th rank in the Vedic pantheon as per the Veda itself. So what is this Tejas? Is Tejas material Agni? Is Aap material water? Is Annam the material food or earth? The answer is a resounding no, because when you read the Upanishads, you need to look at what are all the words that are being used. Okay, so you would, I hope you understand the beauty of the language of Uddalaka. So look, what has he said in the first line? Tad aikshata bahusyam prajaya iti. Praja means what? Praja means sentient beings. Jadas are not called prajas. Yeah, prajayayeti. Praja means sentient beings. So he is actually talking about the evolution of the devatas whom the Supreme Lord brings about. So think about this. It may be a new concept for you to take in, but think about this devata concept, because this is called Tattva Abhimani Devatas. These are all the ones that form the part of the Vedic pantheon. And over hundreds and thousands of years, some of these Abhimani Devatas have become more and more popular. And those popular Abhimani Devatas, we have built temples and we worship them. And over several years, what has happened is we have forgotten where they stand in the Vedic pantheon. Number one. Number two, there is also prevailing hypothesis among the non-Hindus saying that these fellows, the practitioner of Sanatana Dharma, are worshipping millions of gods, when there is only one god for us, say other groups. They worship one, but these fellows worship many other gods. Okay, this is their own misunderstanding, and unfortunately, some of us have also forgotten how this has evolved in the Sanatana Dharma. And Uddalaka is actually going to explain this to you in this paragraph, and hopefully you will find this interesting. So the proper interpretation of this paragraph is see the internal evidence. So number one, Praja. Okay, Praja is one internal evidence, and I'll tell you what the other internal evidence is. So he has said Tat Teja Aikshata. Next, there is the question. Tat, next line is Tat Tejo Aikshata. Will fire think? If this is a material fire, will a material fire think? Does a jada have the capacity to think? As I said, Aikshata means desire, to think. So a jada, a material fire, cannot think. Similarly, ta apa aikshanta, water thought, will that think? No, it cannot think. So this is all, again, our friends from the Buddhist schools have taken all these words and they have said the language of the Vedas is stupid, it is illogical. For example, there is a famous verse in Shatapatha Brahmanam of Rigveda, Mruta Abravit, Apaha Abruvan. Similarly, Tat Tejo Aikshata, Ta Apa Aikshanta, which means Mruda Abravit means, Mrut Abravit means mud spoke. Apaha Abruvan, water spoke. So when these kind of words come in, how do you interpret that? So for that, you need the language of the Vedas. And what our great Vedavyasa has done, whom we are celebrating this week for our Guru Purnima, is he has resolved all these problems. And he brings in this concept called Abhimani Devatas. Abhimani Vyapadeshtastu Visesha Anugatibhyam. So I've given you a reference for that. Go and read the bhashyas of this. What does this Abhimani Vyapadestu Visesha Anugatibhyam actually means? So they actually means, so this is when the Upanishads become interesting. You don't read Mrud as just mud. Mrud is the Abhimani Devata of mud. Apaha is the Abhimani Devata of water. Teja, Tat Tejaha, Abhimani Devata of fire. So he spoke, he thinks, then that makes sense. So there is this second evidence that Aikshanta there again means that these fellows, Tejas, Ap and Annam, are some sentient beings that are being described here. Now there is also another concept of Vedic language. One, whenever there is a material, whenever there is something about apaha or any material thing that is described, you have to go into, as I told you before, Adi Devata, Adi Yajna, Adi Bhautika, all those interpretations. And then you use these two key sutras. One is Abhimani Devata and of course Antaryamin. Inside all this is the Antaryamin who is there. And Vyasa has done a sutra for that. Antaryami Adideva Dishu Tad Dharma Vyapadeshat. Okay. So, for example, I've given you an important example here about a coconut. There is coconut in this tree. This is also called coconut. Somebody climbs up the coconut tree, takes the coconut, opens up the shell, and there is a brown thing. That is also a coconut. Somebody breaks open the coconut, and there is the white thing. That is also called the coconut. And somebody makes a juice of this. That is also called the coconut. Okay. So what is the coconut here? What is the real coconut? Which one has really got the name coconut? It is the juice that has got the name coconut. And there are various coverings on it. And they all assume the name of the juice. That exactly is the concept of Taittiriya Upanishad called Raso Vai Saha. And it says the Supreme Being is the essence of all. And he has all the names. He has infinite names, and all names are given to him. Yeah. So I hope you find this interesting, because I think this is important, because it is a strong rebuttal to those of the Tathagata and Arhata Charvaka schools. Who is going to tell me what Tathagata is, what Arhata is? I'll just pause there for a minute. Who is an Arhata and who is a Tathagata? Any answers, please? Charvaka?
Charvaka is the one who is material, isn't it? He says everything is material. There's no spiritual Atma, God, or anything like that.
Thank you, Sudarshan. Very good. So who is Arhata? Arhata are the practitioners of the Jain philosophy.
Jainism.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Tathagata are the Buddhist. So our friends in these three circles have taken all these words. Oh, Tattejo Aikshata, how can fire think? Oh, Mruda Abravit, how can mud speak? Look at the language of the Vedas. It's stupid and irrational. And hence Vedas are non-authoritative. Okay. The strong rebuttal from the Vedantist, from the practitioners of Vedas is, mate, go to a proper Gurukula and study the language of the Vedas properly. Without knowing the language of the Vedas, don't try and pull it down. You need to understand the language of the Vedas, and there are systems in place to understand. And that system is Abhimani Devata, and within the Abhimani Devata is the Antaryami. So look at this Chandogya Upanishad itself. You go to the next paragraph. So look at this. Seyam devata aikshata hanta aham imam tisro devata anena jivena atmana anupravisha nama rupa vyakaravaniti. Okay. So again, context becomes important. So when you look at the context, then you understand there is one fellow called Devata who is Vishnu or Narayana himself, and they are all Tisro Devataha. These three, Teja, Aap, and Annam, are the three Devatas. That is what Uddalaka is talking about. And this is the key of this Upanishad. If we haven't grasped this, and if we go on ranting about this is fire, water, and earth, this is fire, water, and earth mixing with each other, it just will not make sense. So my aim here is so that we use interpretations and the rules of interpretation. If you remember when we did Brahma Sutra, the Tatparya Lingas and so on. So you have to use those things and understand. Then it becomes very, very interesting. And I'll tell you why it becomes interesting. So now you need to understand, what does Teja actually means? What does Aap actually mean? What does Annam actually mean? So you need to go to the etymology of these words. Okay. And as we said, the whole of the language is etymological. So let us take Teja. Teja, you separate them into two. Te plus Ja, or Te plus Aja. Okay. Now, if you look at this, Te, so what does first word say? Tad Aikshata. Tat, that, thought. Tat is a noun, and there are so many ways of interpreting this. So unless you understand this, you will never understand Tattvamasi or any of this. Okay. So do some homework on this. So Tat Sapta Supratama, it has got various cases. Vocative case, nominative case, accusative case, instrumental case, dative case, ablative case, genitive case, and locative case. The whole of grammar of the English is directly nicked or stolen from the grammar of the Vedic Sanskrit. There is no ifs or buts about it. It is exactly that, because the tat can become so many things. So one thing is, it can become what's called tasmin, or it can also mean tata. So if you take these two, the te can mean tasmin or tata. What is tasmin? I've written this for you: inside him. Okay, so Teja, Te Aja. So this Teja in one sense can mean is Lakshmi. Lakshmi is also called Tejas. She's called Teja because number one, she is Aja, she is unborn. She is always with Vishnu. She is always a Vishnu's concept. She is all pervasive. She is always there with Narayana. She is dependent, but she is always there and she is unborn. Okay, but during creation, when the creation starts, what does Uddalaka says? Tad aikshata bahusyam prajayeti. Let me create my family. I want to bring my family into existence. Who are his family? His prajas. Who are the families? Not only Tattva Abhimani Devatas, but following them, all other Devatas and all the Jivas. They are all his family. So they all have to come into being. So for that to happen, he has to bring the first person in. So that first person who comes into a type of creation is Lakshmi. Okay, so she is called Teja. So look at this Te and Aja. And when you say Te and Ja, that means Tasmin, from him, Lakshmi comes out. How? Lakshmi, you may remember Shri Bhu Durga, the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, how they evolved during material creation. So the Vedic philosophy there is a particular form of Lakshmi that comes out. It's called Vidya. For those of you who are interested in these kind of stuff. So that particular name of Lakshmi that is called Vidya, and we all know there are many friends, at least there was quite a few classmates in school who had Vidya as their name. Why are they called Vidya? It's a name of Lakshmi who comes out in the first phase of creation. So she's uncreated, but there is a particular form of Lakshmi that comes out who then starts the rest of the creation. Okay, so that is one name of Teja, is Lakshmi. Teja also means Chaturmukha Brahma. Okay, Te and Ja. From him, he is created. Who is created from Vishnu? Chaturmukha, who is Lakshmi and Narayana's son, is Chaturmukha. So Teja, there is Chaturmukha. Look at the other way of Teja opens, Te plus Aja. We all know Aja is a common name for Chaturmukha Brahma. Why is he called Aja? A plus Brahma. A plus Ja. Ja means to be born. Jayante is born. A is what? Aha iti Brahma of Aitareya Upanishad. Agara Mudara Eluthellam Adi Bhagavan Mugatre Ulagu is the famous verse of Tamil. Akara is the name of the Supreme. So this Ja comes from Akara. So that is also called Chaturmukha Brahma. So I hope you are able to grasp where I am getting at now. So Chaturmukha Brahma comes from Tad Aikshata Bahusyam Prajayeya iti Tad Tejo Asrujata. So when you look at that word, it gives you the idea as to how during creation, Lakshmi Narayana are there before creation. Then he desires, let me create. Then Lakshmi takes a particular form which she plays a role during creation called Tejaha. Lakshmi and Narayana, from these two come Chaturmukha Brahma. He is also called Tejaha. So those two concepts are compressed in that word Tejaha. Okay, now the next question is, who's Apaha then? Because next it says that Tejo Aikshanta, and it goes on and says Apaha comes from Tejaha. Okay, who is Apaha? Etymology. A plus Pa. A means everywhere and very well. Palane means who protects. Okay. Apnuvanti, who protects. Apanti. Okay. So Apaha is water, right? Yeah, why is water called apaha? Who is going to say that? I mean, again, as I said, every word in Sanskrit is etymology.
Fluidity. Is it fluidity? I mean, it
Fluidity,
moves around. It moves.
possibly. That is for nadi. The nadi.
Vahati iti nadi.
Yeah, when it moves, it makes a sound. So that's why nadanyati iti nadihi. So apaha, what is the meaning of apaha? Thanks, Shilaji, you were close. Anybody else wants to say why water is called apaha? Apiyante iti apaha. That which we drink is called apaha. Okay, so apiyante iti apaha is one name for apaha, but apaha has got so many other ways. Apalane, apnuvanti, apanti iti apaha. So all these ways you have to look at the Sanskrit words before you understand. So when you do this, it becomes a Vedic deity called Mukhya Prana, also called Vayu. So from Chaturmukha and Saraswati, Vayu comes. Okay. Then it says from Apaha, Annam comes. Okay. So who is that Annam? Okay. This is very interesting. Who this Annam is? Annam. So let's look. I put this photo here. So who is this? Who is going to answer this question? What is this picture symbolizes? So who is this guy?
Shiva. Shiva.
Okay, excellent. Why is Shiva called Annam? Okay.
From him,
Annam
everything
is
we
because
get. Ahankara tattva.
yeah, or finally it's a sort of earth, isn't it? Annam is earth, and he sort of signifies the whatever after destruction.
Brilliant, Sudarshan, you are absolutely right. Spot on. So let's take this Hara. Hara is Shiva, right? Hara, what is Hara comes from Ahara. Ahara is what? Ahara is what? Annam. Food. Food is called Ahara. So Hara comes from Ahara, which is Annam. Annam comes from the etymology Atti iti Annam. So there is a particular verse in Taittiriya Upanishad that actually talks of the Adyate Atti cha Bhutani Tasmat Tad Annam Tad Uchyate iti. That entity that eats everything, that entity that eats the whole of the universe is called Annam. Atti iti Annam. Yeah. Who is the person who who destroys the whole universe? Shiva. Shiva Tattva is one view there. But of course, inside Shiva is Antaryami, etc., etc. That's a different point. But Shiva eats the whole universe. The universe is his Annam. But at the same time, all jivas below him are dependent on him. So he becomes an Annam for everybody else. So Annam is a very interesting word. That's what is Taittiriya Upanishad gives you a definition what Annam actually means. So when you look at that kind of etymology, Annam then is Rudra or Shiva Tattva. Now you will begin to appreciate what this concept is all about. This is about the Hindu Trinity. Yeah. So this particular verse talking about these three people coming in has got nothing to do with material fire, nothing to do with material water, nothing to do with material food. It is to do with Vishnu, Chaturmukha, and Shiva. And somehow these three have taken prominent position over hundreds and thousands of years. And we have assumed that this is the Holy Trinity. Of course, there is Lakshmi. Of course, there is Mukhya Prana and Vayu. Okay. So this is the concept of Holy Trinity. So I've got a question there. Who is going to give us a brief overview of the Holy Trinity of Sanatana Dharma? Any volunteers?
Yeah, Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma.
So what is their portfolios and what are they supposed to do?
Yeah, Brahma is for creation, and Vishnu is to maintain and day-to-day performance, and Shiva is for destruction.
Thank you, Sudarshan. So that is the prevailing view. What we have forgotten when we look at the Upanishad, yeah. So when we look at the Upanishads carefully, so when you look at Taittiriya Upanishad, so akamayat bahusyam prajayeya iti, then he says every aspect of his creation he actually enters in. We have done it so many times. So Chaturmukha creates Brahmanda, but inside him is Vishnu, who actually makes Chaturmukha Brahma create the Brahmanda. Mukhya Prana is important at least for certain schools for Pindanda. Pindanda is our body. You have the 5 pranas, right, which makes the body work. Yeah. So for certain schools, Mukhya Prana becomes important. How? Inside Mukhya Prana is Vishnu. So Vishnu, Mukhya Prana, who has a major portfolio in the Pindanda. Shiva, of course, from Shiva, Shiva is such an important deity in the Vedic pantheon because Pancha Tanmatras, Pancha Bhutas, Indriyas, Manas, everything comes from the Ahankara Tattva for which he is the Abhimani deity. So these 3 guys are so important, but somehow down the generations, there is a there is a confusion that there are three important independent beings in Sanatana Dharma. So this fellow's portfolio is to maintain the universe, this Chaturmukha's portfolio is to create the universe, and Shiva's portfolio is destroy the universe. That is fundamentally wrong. Everybody is involved in everything. But this follows independently. Vishnu independently controls the activity of Chaturmukha, Brahma, and Shiva. Shiva creates a lot of things. He just does not destroy everything. The whole Panchabhuta comes from the Ahankara Tattva of Shiva. He is an amazing deity. Yeah, let's not forget him. Chaturmukha Brahma, amazing deity. Somehow Chaturmukha Brahma is not worshipped. But Chaturmukha Brahma comes from the whole family of deities. Now, there is another question for us to remind. All these names, Lakshmi, Chaturmukha, Mukhya Prana, Shiva, Indra, Agni, are they names or they are a particular official positions in the Vedic pantheon? Who is going to answer that question?
They are posts.
They are posts. They are not name of some person who is doing this perform. For example, there are infinite number of jivas like Chaturmukha Brahma who are waiting to become their next Chaturmukha Brahma. Okay, so the one guy who is immediately next in line is this chap called Mukhya Prana. They all fall into what is called Rijus. Yeah, do some Google search on who Rijus are. There are infinite Chaturmukha Brahmas who have already been there and they're gone and they're going to moksha. And there are infinite jivas waiting to take the position of Chaturmukha Brahma in the future creation. So I hope you will appreciate the grand vision of Sanatana Dharma, because this is an eternal creation, like, right? Only Lakshmi and Narayana are the same always, but all other fellows come and go. Okay, so the Holy Trinity, I hope my aim here was to impress upon you that this concept of Holy Trinity is helpful. It's helpful to some extent, but it is not the full truth. Vishnu Sarvottama is established in scriptures. Chaturmukha and Shiva, they have very, very important portfolio during creation, but they are all operating under the direction of Narayana. Okay? That is the view of at least Vaishnava schools of philosophy. So now, with all this background, I'm sorry, I had to give you all this background, because without understanding this background, then you will not be able to appreciate what is it that our Uddalaka Aruni is actually talking about. So what did he say? Tad aikshata bahusyam prajayeti. So this Brahman was there, ekameva advitiyam. He desired he'll create. And so what did he desire? He desired of bringing his family into creation. So when he desired to do that, which one did he bring about in creation first? Tat tejo asrujata. So Lakshmi in the form of Vidya, who then becomes Shri, Bhu and Durga, controlling Sattva, Rajas and Tamo gunas of the Mula Prakriti, comes into being. Okay. Tat tejo aikshata bahusyam prajaye iti tad apo asrujata. Okay, so that tejas not only mean Vidya, but I also told it also means Chaturmukha Brahma. So when you say about Lakshmi, and again we worship Lakshmi, right? Why? Because she is the first who brings about creation. Ambarini Shukta celebrates this, and I've told you so many things. Yam kamaye tam tamugram karomi tam brahmanam tam rishim tam sumedami. Aham suvedeti pitaramasya murdan mamayonihi apsvantaha samudre. There is your evidence. These are all very clear. Nobody can have an argument on this. Lakshmi says, I create everybody, but my creator is in that samudra. Mama yonihi apsvantaha. Apsu means that water, that mula prakriti. Samudre, in that ocean of Mula Prakriti, there is one fellow who's sleeping on Sesha. That fellow created me. So this Ambarini Sukta is talking about the Vidya form of Lakshmi that has come from the first step of creation. That is why we worship Lakshmi as the most exalted person. That is why we worship Lakshmi. Yeah. So now let's go through it. So now what happened? Mula Prakriti, Lakshmi, Vidya, Shri, Bhu, Durga have come. Tad tejo aikshata bahusyam prajayeti tad apo aikshanta. So now what will happen is, this tejas, you can take it into two, isn't it? One is Chaturmukha Brahma, one is Lakshmi. So first Lakshmi comes and then Chaturmukha comes. So Chaturmukha is Vishnu and Lakshmi's son, literally. And then this is interesting. Chaturmukha then brings Saraswati into being. Then Saraswati and Chaturmukha then bring about the rest of the creation. So that is why Saraswati is important. So we worship Saraswati a lot. Yeah. Tat tejo aikshata bahusyam prajaye iti tad apo asrujata. So this Chaturmukha and Saraswati bring about Mukhya Prana or Vayu. Similarly, Mukhya Prana comes from Lakshmi and Narayana. I don't want to go into that. Each these fellows get various forms of creations. Let's not go into the details. And then Vayu has his consort called Bharati. So all these names, you would have seen your friends having these names, Bharati, Saraswati, Vidya. Why are they getting these names? They're all being influenced and inspired by the Upanishads. Yeah. So these, and here is another point. All these demigods that come down, they always come with their consorts. So Chaturmukha always has Saraswati. Vayu, Mukhya Prana always has Bharati. Okay, so now this sequence, today we are doing this sequence, but tomorrow you might forget this. Who came first, who came next? Okay, for that, our great Rishi Uddalaka gives a mundane example for us to remember. He says, Tasmad yatra kvacha shochati svedate purushaha tejasa eva tad apo jayante. So he says, you know what? We have had a very warm summer. Last week, it's been very, very warm. When it is very, very warm, what is happening? Sweat comes out. Okay. So here is another very interesting word. Shochati means heat. Shvedate, Shveda means sweat. Shveda in Sanskrit becomes sweat in English. Again, Vacharambana Vikaro Namadeyam. Yeah. Sweda is sweat. So when tomorrow, when the weather is warm, when it is hot, when you get sweat, think about this. There is Tejas is Lakshmi and Chaturmukha Brahma, and from them water comes. So water is Mukhya Prana. So you can understand this sequence. So as I said, Uddalaka is a guru par excellence who always teaches with practical examples. So far we have seen mud, nugget of gold, and talked about nail cutter, spoke about Vedas. Now he is given an example in your own Pindanda, how you sweat when it is hot. Not that it's a literal meaning. It is a metaphorical example for you to then understand the sequence. Tejas means Lakshmi and Chaturmukha. Apaha means Mukhya Prana. Now I just got one section on Mukhya Prana. Who is this Mukhya Prana? Yeah, and then you need to go to the Upanishads. So if you go to Prashna Upanishad, the main topic of Prashna Upanishad is prana. Yeah. That is him. He's spoken so much. Pippalada Rishi, there are the 6 rishis who go and ask this question to Pippalada, and they're asking about who is this prana and so on. And he talks about this. So for example, in the first verse, Ata kabandi katyayana upetya praparacha Bhagavan kuto hava imaha prajaha prajayanta iti tasmai sahovacha prajakamo vai prajapatihi satapo atapyata satapastaptva sa mitunam utpadayante rayim cha pranam cha. Yeah, so all these words are very, very important because Prajapati there means the Supreme Brahman. Prajapati also means Chaturmukha Brahma. Rayi means Bharati. Prana means Prana. So these fellows then carry on with creation. And then the whole Prashna Upanishad talks about how this Mukhya Prana is like the queen bee. And all other bees are in this home. And the queen bee is there. When the queen bee leaves, all other bees have to leave. How this Mukhya Prana is like that? Ara iva ratanabho prane sarvam pratishtitam. So how everything is dependent on him and so on. So there are some new concepts for you to go and read. These are all not my own concepts. These are all from the Upanishads. So Prashna Upanishad talks about Mukhya Prana quite a lot. Hopefully at some point we'll do those 6 big questions of Prashna Upanishads. So we move on, and I want to finish this today. So tad aikshata bahusyam prajaye iti tat tejo asrujata. Tat tejo aikshata bahusyam prajaye iti tat apo asrujata. So the sequence is very, very easy for us. Lakshmi Narayana, Vidya, Chaturmukha, Mukhya Prana, Rudra. Okay. So now our Rudra has come. Yeah. So now Tasmad yatra kvacha varshati tadeva bhuishtam annam bhavati adabhya eva tad annadhyam jayate. Okay, so here I forgot this verse. Ta apa aikshanta bahvyaha syam prajayemahiti ta annam asrujata. So he is giving the sequence. So from annam, no, from water, annam has come. And we understood who that annam is. Annam is Rudra, who is the Abhimani of Ahankara Tattva. Yeah, so now you understand the sequence which we have understood. So Vishnu, Lakshmi, Chaturmukha, Mukhya Prana, Rudra. Chaturmukha Saraswati, Vayus Bharati, Shiva's Parvati. So you got all these famous characters of Hinduism of present day. So all these chappies are there. Then of course Shiva and Parvati's kids are Ganesha, Subramanya. So we got only these things if we go to our temples. And they are all there for a reason, because they all come from the Upanishads and the Vedas as to how they come about during creation. So again, our great Rishi, for us to understand that sequence as to how from water food comes, or how from Mukhya Prana and Bharati, Rudra and Parvati, they come in creation, he gives us an example. Tasmad yatra kvacha varshati tadeva bhuishtam annam bhavati. So when it rains, what happens when it rains? You get crops. When you have crops, what do you have? You have a nice yield. When you have nice yield, you harvest. When you have a harvest, what do you get? You get annam. Yeah, you get food. So when you remember this, so then you will remember that from apaha, annam comes during creation, the sequence. So these are almost like mnemonics, which some of us are very used to when you study your anatomy and so on, of remembering some sequences in some mundane examples so that you understand deeper philosophy. So the deeper philosophy there is these guys. Yeah. And now you can appreciate why these guys are celebrated in our temples. Yeah. So then he goes on. Tad aikshata. Let me finish this verse. Tad aikshata bahusyam prajaye iti. Tat tejo asrujata. Tat tejo aikshata bahusyam prajaye iti. Tad apo asrujata. Tasmad yatra kvacha sochati. Svedate va purushaha tejasa eva tad apo jayante. Ta apaha aikshanta bahusyaha syam prajaye mahiti. Ta annam asrujanta tasmad yatra kvacha varshati tadeva bhuishtam annam bhavati adabhya eva tad yad annadyam jayate. Okay, so this is the basic sequence. So if we have not understood this primary sequence in creation as to not only the material thing, that is the sattva rajas tamo gunas, they then start vibrating, then mahat tattva comes, the body of that is Chaturmukha's body is mahat tattva, a portion of mahat tattva then becomes ahankara tattva, Rudra is the abhimani devata of ahankara tattva, a portion of the ahankara then becomes vaikara, tejasa and tamasa. All these languages, the Upanishads, then becomes very, very clear when we follow the rules of interpretation. And it also tells you very clearly why these devatas are very important in our Sanatana Dharma, that we are still going to the temples and worshipping them. We should all, the God's family is very important, and I can't stress this enough. There are some people who think I'm going to directly go to Vishnu and I worship him. Good luck to that person who thinks he can directly go to Vishnu and worship him. In so many places in the Upanishads, Krishna and Vishnu have clearly said, you approach me, yes, but also, you know what, you have to worship these fellows, because in your body, they are Abhimani Devatas of certain aspects of your body. When you worship them, they will ensure that your direction of worship is towards me. So there is no open sesame and then Vishnu appears. There is a process in Sanatana Dharma that you worship all of them. But that does not mean there are multitudes of gods. No, there is only one independent supreme God whom we call Vishnu, Narayana or Krishna or whatever. But there are a whole slew of highly exalted beings whom we worship so that they can direct us towards Vishnu. Okay, so this is a key concept that we need to understand when we look at these verses. Okay, now of course what happens is the Uddalaka then goes on and he inserts another beautiful, this is an amazing verse. He says, you know what is there all in creation on earth? Tesham kalvesham bhutanam trinieva bijani, trinieva. In this whole of earth, there are only three types of jiva jatas. What are they? Trini eva bijani bhavanti. Andajam, Jivadam, Udbijam. Andajam means that which comes from eggs. Jivaja means that which comes from the womb. Udbijam means that which comes from the seed. And he talks about the oviparous, viviparous, and plants, because everything else in the creation comes from the mixing up of Rudra and Parvati, Mukhya Prana and Bharati, Chaturmukha Brahma and Saraswati. They, with their components of the material universe, they mix and bring everything else into creation. Of course, controlled by Lakshmi and Narayana, who are on the top of the ladder. Everything else comes into being. So how does that evolve? And I've shown you this figure. We don't have time to go through all this, but these are all the various Abhimani Devatas of the Vedic pantheon. Some of these names you will recognize: Ganesha, Shani. You will recognize all these fellows: Brihaspati, Surya, Varuna, Kubera. So they're all there. Agni, they're all there, but they have a particular portfolio. Yeah. And they perform their activation not only in Brahmanda, but also in Pindanda. Okay. So now this will all fall into place when you look at this. So when you look at Bhagavatam, what was the very first verse? Somebody wants to recite the first verse of Bhagavatam for us. Shilaji, do you want to have a go? Okay, Shilaji is not there. So what is the first verse of Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam?
Shall I say?
Yeah, please.
Janmadhyasya yatonmayadit. I can't see. Tarashcharthesha vijñaswarat tene brahma hridaya adikavaye muhyanti satsurayah tejo vari mrudam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrusha dhamna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi.
Thank you so much, Shilaji. So there you have your answer. So we've spent so much talking about who Teja is. So I've underlined this for you here. So Teja, Vari means water, Mruda means earth. Okay. So Tejo Vari Mruda Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrusha. So that great verse of Veda Vyasa here, to understand who this Teja is, who this water is, who this Mruda is, you should go to our Uddalaka Aruni, chapter 6, second Adhyaya, to understand who these chaps are, because that is what he is talking about, Veda Vyasa. Yeah, so that fits in here. And as I told you so many times, everything is Samanvaya. When you look at the verses in Bhagavatam, and you look at the chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, and you look up at all the Upanishads, they all say the same thing. It is just that we need to open up our eyes to see what they are telling us. And as I told you before, we need to read these scriptures as what they are telling us, rather than us hypothesizing from our own brains what needs to happen. Yeah. So in this process, so you have to just finish off today's session. So you have this whole thing concept called the Brahmanda, where the material universe, how it evolves. Then you have the concept of Pindanda, where every component of our body is also, the Vedic rishis have seen, are controlled and looked after by certain Abhimani Devatas. This Pindanda, Brahmanda, and the Abhimani Devatas is very, very nicely captured by Uddalaka in the second khanda of the 6th chapter. Okay, so then of course he goes on, and then he talks about how this whole Andajam, Jivajam, and Udbijam, how that comes about, and how in Pindanda every aspect of what is there in the Pindanda is a combination of Shiva Tattva, Chaturmukha, Mukhya Prana, Lakshmi Narayana. How everything in the material universe has come about under the control of these 5. When he talks about that, it all fits in very well. So in this picture, I've just given you the ranks. Vishnu number 1, Lakshmi number 2, Chaturmukha number 3, Mukhya Prana number 3, Saraswati Bharati number 4, Rudra 5, Parvati, it is a slight printing mistake for me. Parvati is 7, because number 6 is the Vishnu Shanmahishis. Yeah, so that has to be 7. So these are all, this is called Devata Taratamya, which is very important, because when we worship all these deities, we should worship them with the right approach. We cannot say, so there is a particular school, Shakta school, for example, who would worship only Shakti. Fantastic. But please do that as per the advice of Veda Vyasa. in Avirodha Adhyaya, where he talks about how is the Shakta school, how we worship it. And when we understand Uddalaka's language, it all falls into place very nicely. So what I will do next time when we catch up is to go through how this creation then evolves. Trini, it's a combination of three. What are those three? Tejas, Apan, Annam. Who are Tejas, Apan, Annam? Lakshmi, Narayana, Chaturmukha, Saraswati, Mukhya Prana, Bharati, Rudra, Parvati. How these entities bring about creation. So that is what Uddalaka is talking about. And in this process, what is he bringing? Eka Vijnanena Sarva Vijnanam. Let us not forget, he's talking about Pradhanya of Vishnu. So, but you can understand the Pradhanya of Vishnu, how he directs this creation through all other subordinates of him. Okay, so that is a key message of what Uddalaka is trying to tell us. So I'll stop there. Krishna Pranamastu, and we can have discussion. Thank you very much.
Madhu, I have one question. Which creation does Shvedaja come under? Born out of sweat? Because I thought
Yes,
there are-
good question. So Shvedaja, the fourth type of creation that is said, that is there in some scriptures, but actually it comes in Andajam. So most scholars agree that the Shvedata, so sometimes you can have sweat and something comes out of sweat, but that actually they fall under Andajam.
Yeah, they have eggs, isn't it? Especially hair lice, head lice.
Yes, Andajam.
Madhu, thank you, Madhu. I think this goes, I remember you did last year the Vedic Pantheon lecture. Whatever you did today goes along with that, isn't it? So
yeah, absolutely. So this section will give a revision of creation and will also give a revision of Vedic Pantheon.
Pantheon both.
Together. So then we have a logical approach to, when we go to Balaji temple, for example, why do we go to all these small, you have all other Sannidhanas, then you have climb up the steps and then you have the Balaji there. Why is it like that? So what is the science behind it? What is the logic behind it? The second chapter talks about this very well, Sudarshan. So that's why I felt to spend some time discussing that today.
Okay, I think Madhu, this is serious. What I'm saying is serious. We need to create maybe you need to create, not we. You need to create a lecture where you probably it will be very useful at a practical level because these lectures only very sort of very much interested people come. But it could be that like if you create a like a YouTube video or even a 1 hour lecture, whatever, where say like why do we go to temple and how should we be worshipping and what is the order in hierarchy and everything. So that will bring this Vedic pantheon and everything. It will be very useful, I think, for many of the people who go to the temple and many of the people even work in the temple as well. They may not even know. So maybe we'll talk about it in private. We create a video. Like it will be very useful for the younger generation as well.
Yeah,
So,
sure, Sudarshan. Sounds like a good idea. Yeah, we'll do it at some point. Yeah, definitely.
okay. Any other questions, please?
So Sudarshan, what I was going to do is next time when we meet, I'm going to get one of our friends to do a bit of a revision of all that we have done before. So then before we progress to the next section, so that we are all doing the studies together. Yeah. So I'll get one of them. Anybody who wants to volunteer and spend the first 10 to 15 minutes to give us a quick revision of all that we have done over the last 4 sessions, then it'll be helpful for all of us. And of course, for the person who's doing it, it'll be even more helpful because then they have tried to crystallize their thoughts and made a presentation. So if anybody wants to volunteer, please send me a message or Sudarshan the message. Otherwise, I'm going to pick somebody. So watch out for that message.
What's happening next week? Is it which team?
Oh yes, sorry. The following week in fortnight is my class, and next week we got an excellent session. Of course, I forgot to mention that. So Ajit Ji from Stoke is coordinating chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, and he's got a fantastic team of I think 6 friends who are going to be sharing key verses from chapter 3 Karma Yoga of Bhagavad Gita. And Ajit is going to do the quiz as well. So it promises to be another very interesting session. So Sudarshan, we have a team of 4. So we are having a band 1 on-call rota here, 1:4. So once Ajit's team has come, then we'll go back to the first team and get the Gita sessions going. I think the feedback so far about the Gita is all of us are enjoying it. So it's much more relaxed, but at the same time, lots of information is going inside the head. So I really look forward to the chapter 3, which as you all know, is a key chapter of Bhagavad Gita as well, of Karma Yoga. And thanks, Ajit, for coordinating this. Ajit, do you want to give us some initial trailer of what it's going to be like?
Thanks, Madhu, for the build up. I just hope we all rise to the occasion. So we got a fantastic team, as you've said. It's Sheila ji and Manjunath uncle and Chitra and Radhika will be doing all the hard work, and I'll be just trying to sit back and show as if I'm doing a lot of work. So no, yeah, it'll be the other guys who will be doing all the work.
Excellent, Ajit. Yeah, thanks for that. So look forward to that. So if there are no more questions, shall we get Harish to take us through the recitation of Om, or Sudarshan to take us through the recitation of Om and close the session? Sudarshan.
Yeah. Harish can do, please, Harish.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Madhu. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.